Hello and welcome back to part number 3 of our crochet project, where we're making this beautiful sachet for your perfumed soaps. So now you should be on the top here. You should have done 14 rows of trebles. Okay, I hope it goes well, or it's going well. If you have any questions, please do let me know below. Please don't get stuck. Right, so we are going to now make the rows of squares here. Okay, so we're going to make 3 rows of squares. From a crochet point of view, nothing's going to change. It's the same stitches that we're going to do. We're going to make chains and we're going to make trebles in the same exact way. We're just going to shape it differently to make the squares. Alright, so let's go and move on to the next step, the rows of squares. Alright, so here we start with a chain of 5. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to insert the hook on the 3rd stitch. Okay, so that's number 1 there, that's number 2, that's number 3. That's where we're going to insert the hook. So remember, if you're not sure about the stitches, then go through them. You'll see from the top the little V's. Okay, you can go there and open them a little bit so that you know where to insert the hook. Okay, so let's go back to our chain of 5 there, yarn over and insert the hook on the 3rd stitch and make a treble. Again, pull through 2, pull through 2. And you have your first square there. Okay, and we made a chain of 5 because we need 3 stitches for the little wall and the 2 stitches for the ceiling of our square. Okay, so now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to insert the hook on the 2nd stitch. So from now on we're going to insert the hook on the 2nd stitch. So that's the first there, and that's the 2nd. It's the first because that's where you have your treble, so we can't count that, so we count the next one. 1, 2. Okay, so chain 2, yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch and make a treble, or a pillar as I like to call it. Okay, there, and make a pillar, and that's your 2nd square. Okay, and now until the end we're going to do exactly the same thing. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch, 1, 2, and make a pillar. Okay, that's your 3rd square. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch, 1, 2, and make a pillar. Your 4th square. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go into the 2nd stitch, 1, 2, and make a pillar. Exact same way as you have been doing, no different. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over to the 2nd stitch, 1, 2. Okay, till the end. very end you have the chain of 3 from the previous row, so you need to count the third stitch, 1 2 3, to insert the hook on the top there. So chain 2, 1 2, yarn over, so 1 stitch, 2 stitch on the chain of 3 of the previous row, and that's your last square. And in total we should have 10 little squares. So let's count them. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, so we have 10 squares. Now we need 2 more rows of squares. Okay, turn the work. Let's start the next row of squares. We start with a chain of 5 like before. Chain 5, 1 2 3 4 5, and now we're going to make the pillars on top of the pillars. So we're going to insert the hook right there on top. Find the stitch there right on top, and that's where we are going to insert the hook each time. Okay, so pillar on top of pillar. So back to the chain of 5 there. Yarn over onto the top of your pillar there and make a pillar or a treble. Okay, and that's your first square. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over onto the next pillar on top there and make a pillar. And we're making square on top of square. Okay, chain 2, 1 2, yarn over onto the next pillar on top there, make another pillar. So square on top of square, pillar on top of pillar. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over onto the next pillar there. Square on top of square. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn off onto the next pillar, and so on until the end, and I'll meet you at the end. So I'm here at the end, and here we have the chain of 5 from the previous row. Okay, so we need to insert the hook on the third stitch. So you count 3 stitches, 1 2 3, and right there on the third stitch, that's where you're going to make the last square. Okay, because remember that the first three stitches is the wall, and the other 2 stitches is the ceiling of the little square. Okay, okay, so chain 2, 1 2, yarn over, and onto the third stitch there you make your last pillar to make the last square of this row. Okay, and again we have 10 squares. Okay, so let's make the last row of squares. Same thing, chain 5, 1 2 3 4 5, yarn over onto the pillar there, make a pillar. Oops. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over onto the next pillar, make a pillar. Pillar on top of pillar, square on top of square. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over onto the next pillar, make a pillar, and so on until the very end. Okay, and I'll meet you again at the very end there. very end, and again we have that chain of 5 that we did on the previous row. Again we need to count the stitch number 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's where we're going to insert the hook to make the last square. Okay, so chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over and on 2, that hook, that stitch there, okay, and you made your last square and the last row of squares that we need, okay, and my cotton just finished there, which is very lucky, and that's done. Okay, so we have done the back of our sachet. Now here you see that there is an effect, this wavy, this is called scallops in crochet, but we are not going to do this now. We're going to leave these details for the very end. Okay, for now you can consider it well done. Part number 2 of our project finished. Part number 1 was the cord, the chain of 40 centimeters, and this is part number 2 done of your little crochet project. Okay, well done. So now cut your cotton. I don't need to cut mine because my cotton finished here, which was lucky, and then you're going to thread the tail through your loop. You're going to pull to secure the work, okay, and now we can put this on the side, and then we come back to it later on. Alright, so now we are going into the front of the sachet. Okay, so we're going to start here, of course, at the beginning, and then and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of 21 trebles. Now I'm not going to do this with you because you have video number 1 where we did the rows. Okay, now it's exactly the same thing as you did here at the back. So you are going to chain 23 stitches, and then you're gonna fold, insert the hook into the 4th stitch and start doing your trebles. Okay, and you do the first row, and then you go to the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th row. So we need 5 rows this time. Okay, and I'll meet you here to make the squares, which is the same thing as we did here. Okay, but I'll meet you here, so go on and make your 5 rows of trebles in exact same way as you made here at the back. So if you don't remember, go back to video number 1 and make your 5 rows of 21 trebles, and I'll meet you here. Okay, so here we are with 5 rows. So this is what you did there, 5 rows now here, and now we're gonna make the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of squares. Okay, and we're going to make them in exact same way as we did before. So turn the work, and we're going to start with a chain of 5. So chain 5, 5, and we're going to insert the hook on the 3rd stitch. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's go back to the chain of 5 there, yarn over and go into the 3rd stitch to make a treble, and that will be our very first square of this row. So that's our square. Okay, chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, and now we're going to insert the hook on the 2nd stitch. Okay, so that's the first one, that's the second. It's the first because that's where you just did your treble. Okay, so you can't count that. That's the first there, the second. Okay, okay? Chain 2, yarn over, insert on the second stitch, 1, 2, and make a treble. Okay, that's your second square. Okay, and carry on this way. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over into the second stitch, 1, 2, and make a treble or a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over into the second stitch, 1, 2, make a pillar. And you're building up your little squares. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over into the second stitch, 1, 2, make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over into the second stitch, 1, 2, and carry on until the very end. I'll meet you at the end. So at the end here we have the first stitch, and the second is on the top of the chain of 3 that you did on the row before. Okay, so go there and open that space there, so you know it's easier for you to insert the hook. Okay, so chain 2, 1, 2 to make the last square, yarn over onto the top of the chain of 3. Make a treble there, and that's your last square of this first row of squares. Okay, let's make the second row of squares. Turn the work, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we are going to make pillar on top of pillar. So you're going to insert your hook on the very top there of each pillar. So find your way in, and that's where we're going to insert the hook. On the top of each pillar. Okay, so let's go back to the chain of 5. Yarn over and go on top of the first pillar to make a pillar. Pull through the first 2, pull through the other 2, okay? And that's your first square. Now chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of the pillar to make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of the next pillar and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of the next pillar and make a pillar. Alright, and carry on until the end. Pillar on top of pillar, square on top of square. I'll meet you at the end there. Right, so I'm here at the end. So now we have that chain of 5 that we make to start each row of squares. Okay, so you need to insert the hook on the stitch number 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, remember that we make a chain of 5 to start with because we need the 3 stitches for the wall and 2 stitches for the ceiling. Okay, so count 1, 2, 3, and you're going to insert your hook there to make your last square. Okay, so if you're not sure, just go through those stitches and count the third one and open that space so that you are sure where to insert the hook. Okay, so let's go back there, chain 2 to make the last square of this row. 1, 2, yarn over and onto the third stitch there, make your last pillar to make the last square. Okay, and there we have row number 2 of squares. Okay, let's go on to row number 3, exactly the same way. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yarn over, go on to the first pillar there and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on to the next pillar there and make a pillar. Okay, and carry on. Chain 2, go on to the next pillar, make a pillar, chain 2, go on to the next pillar, make a pillar, right? So I'll meet you at the end, and here at the end you do the same thing. You have the chain of 5, you count 3 stitches and put your hook on the third stitch to make your last square. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end here. So I'm here at the end of the row, chain 2, 1, 2, and let's count 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, open that space there to insert the hook, yarn over and to that stitch to make the last pillar. All right, and that's the row number 3. Now let's make, we need one more row. Okay, so go and make one more row and I'll meet you at the end of row number 4. Okay, I'm here at the end of row number 4, chain 2, yarn over and 1, 2, 3 into stitch number 3 there on that chain of 5 we did before. Okay, so that's our 4 rows like we needed. Okay, so we are here in our little bag. We are here, so we've done this group of squares, so we are there halfway up. Okay, so now we need to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of trebles in exactly the same way as we did here and as we did at the back. Okay, nothing different. But because now we have the little squares, then you need to learn how to make the first row of trebles. Okay, so here to start the row we're gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And you're going to make one treble inside the square there. So yarn over, going to the square there and make a treble. Okay, now yarn over, go into the next square and there and make another treble. We're gonna make 2 trebles in this square here. Yarn over, go back and make another treble there. Okay, so from now on we're gonna make 2 trebles in each square. Okay, so in that the first square you have 1 treble, then second square you have 2 trebles. trebles into each square. Okay, yarn over, go into the next square and make 2 trebles. That's 1, that's 2. Okay, go into the next one, yarn over, make another 2 trebles. That's 1, that's 2. Okay, go into the next square and make another 2 trebles. Okay, all the way. So we're making 2 trebles in each square. Okay, carry on and I'll meet you at the end. So I'm here at the very end. So at the end there we have that square, which is the chain of 5 we did before, right? So here we're gonna put 2 trebles again, as we did so far, but also another treble on the top of the stitch number 3. So count the stitches 1, 2, 3, and just open that space there, because we're going to insert a treble there as well to make the 21 trebles that we need in each row. Okay, so let's go here and let's make 2 trebles into that square there first. Okay, so that's 1 treble, that's 2 trebles, and now we're gonna make another one, and we're going yarn over and insert the hook on the stitch number 3 there to make the last treble of this row. Okay, and like so we should have 23 stitches. Okay, let's count them. Let me show you another way of counting stitches. So instead of counting 1 by 1, you can count 2 by 2. Okay, so we have a chain there that we start the row with, so that counts as 1 treble. Okay, like before. So let's count every 2. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 21. So that's the end of this row of trebles. Okay, so we are here now. Okay, and now we need to make another 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of trebles. Okay, so let me start the next row with you. So let's go back there. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and yarn over. And remember, we are not going into the very first stitch there. We are going into the second stitch. Okay, and make a treble. Okay, yarn over, go into the next stitch and make another treble. Okay, until the very end. Okay, so we're just doing exactly what we have been doing here and what we did at the back of our work here. Okay, exactly the same way. So you are here now in row number 2 there, and you carry on until you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows in total, and I'll meet you at the end there at the 5th row. Okay, it's just carry on back and forth in the same way as you did here, and doing your rows of 21 trebles. Okay, so remember that at the very end here you will have the chain of 3, and you put the hook on the top of the chain of 3 to make the very last treble. All right, so carry on until you have 5 rows in total. So I'm back here I've done my 1 2 3 4 5 rows of 21 trebles. Now we're going to make the squares. Okay, so we are here. That's we are in our little sachet. We are right here. Okay, so now we are going to make 1 2 3 rows of squares in exact same way as we made here. No different, okay, or here, all the same thing, but let's do it together. So turn the work around, and we're going to start with a chain of 5. So chain 5, 1 2 3 4 5. And now we're going to insert your hook on the 3rd stitch. So that's your first there, 2nd, 3rd. Okay, back to the loop there, yarn over and make a treble there on the 3rd stitch. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, and that's your very first square. Okay, now chain 2, 1 2, and we're going to from now on we are going to insert the hook on the 2nd stitch. Okay, so that's the first there. So it can't be this one because that's where you just did your treble. So that's the next first, and that's the 2nd. And we're going to insert every second the hook in every 2nd stitch. Okay, so chain 2, yarn over, going to the 2nd stitch, 1 2, and make a treble, and that's your 2nd little square. Okay, and from now on it's all the same. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over, going to the 2nd stitch, 1 2, and make a treble. Okay, chain 2, 1 2, yarn over, going to the 2nd stitch, 1 2, make a treble. All the same thing, chains and trebles. Nothing has changed so far in our project, just the shape here is different. Chain 2, 1 2, yarn over, going to the 2nd stitch, 1 2, make a treble. Okay, and carry on until the very end, and I'll meet you at the end there. So I'm at the end here, so the 2nd stitch, 1 2, the 2nd stitch is on top of that chain of 3 that you did on the previous row. Okay, so you need to go there, 1 2 3, right on the top. It's not always easy, so it's best that you go there before you have to insert the hook. Open that space there so that is ready to receive the hook. Chain 2, 1 2, and 1 2, the 2nd stitch there. Oh sorry, I've forgot to yarn over, which is very easy to do, very easy mistake to do. So yarn over onto the stitch and make the last treble to make the last little square of this row. Okay, so we made our first row of squares. Now let's go on onto the 2nd row. Of yarn here, right? Okay, so let's start with a chain of 5. Chain 5, 1 2 3 4 5, and now we're going to put the hook, insert the hook on top of each pillar. Okay, and we make square on top of square. Make pillar on top of pillar. We make trebles on top of trebles. Many ways of saying the same thing. Okay, so let's back to the loop there, to our chain of 5. Now yarn over, go on to the top of your pillar and make a pillar. Okay, chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of the next pillar and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of the next pillar and make a pillar, and so on until the very end. Okay, and I'll meet you again at the very end there. Okay, so carry on with squares on top of squares. Okay, so I'm here at the very end of this row, and again here we have the chain of 5 that we did to start this row of squares. So 1, 2, 3, so you need to count 3 stitches to insert your needle next. Okay, so go there before you need 2, because it's always a little bit fiddly to insert the hook on these chains of stitches. Okay, like you can see, it's not always easy. I think that's the 4th and that's the 3rd there. Okay, so go there before, so that the space there is ready to receive the hook. Alright, so that's the last square here. 1, 2, yarn over and go into that space you have opened before and make your last treble, and that's the second row of squares. Okay, so let's make the 3rd row. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember that we're making 5 to start with, because we need 3 stitches for the wall and we need 2 stitches for the ceiling of our little square. Okay, so now yarn over, go on top of your pillar and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of your next pillar and make a pillar. Chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, go on top of your next pillar and make a pillar, and so on until the very end. And again, I'll meet you at the very end. Okay, so I'm here at the top of the chain of 5 that we make to start with, and again I need to go there just to open the space. 1, 2, 3, that's where I need to insert my hook. So chain 2, 1, 2 to make the very last square. Going to the stitch number 3 and make the last pillar to make the last square. Okay, so we have done the 3 rows of squares that we needed. Okay, so you have done the back of your sachet and you have just finished the front of your sachet. Okay, now the work, the sachet is almost finished. Now we just need to put it together. So we need to put it together and we need to make this wavy effect on the top of the squares there. And we're gonna do that on the next video. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. If you're not sure about it, then undo and do it again. Don't be shy or afraid of undoing. The more you undo, the more the better you'll get at it. So I'll be back with video number 4 to put the work together. Bye bye now.